The Mexican-American War, 1846 to 1848. The war had begun because of the events that had taken place after Texans rebelled from Mexico. Texans had beaten Mexican forces and saw themselves as their own independent country, but Mexico did not care for these beliefs. They still saw the land of Texas as their own, and they planned to keep it that way. Texans knew that if they stayed on their own for too long, their hard work would surely go to waste. So they asked America to annex Texas, but the Americans had put it to a vote and rejected Texas not once, but twice, due to the internal conflicts that America was facing with the slave states and free states debate. And they also did not want to go to war with Mexico at the time. This had all changed soon after when James K. Polk took office and demanded that they would spread the border from Nueces River to Rio Grande. James K. Polk was a strong believer in manifest destiny, and he believed that we should have taken more land to the west. And that's what he did. He had sent troops to stand their guard and build forts at the Rio Grande. He had also sent John Seidel to go negotiate with the Mexicans about his plans to buy California and the land in between it. But the Mexicans did not plan to accept any of these negotiations, and they would not allow Texas to annex themselves to America, because it was in fact extorted land. Mexico had had it with the fort settings of Rio Grande, and they had opened fire on the American troops that were sent there. This was the perfect excuse for James K. Polk to declare war upon them, and another opportunity to finally annex Texas into America by spreading propaganda that the shooting happened on American territory, when in reality it was near Rio Grande, which was Mexican territory, and past the Nueces River, which was the border between America and Mexico. Polk claimed that American blood was shed on American land, but when in reality the Mexicans had saw it as an act of banditry and defended themselves accordingly, and they had seen it as American blood shed on Mexican land. Not long after the first major battle of the Mexican-American War took place. This war was the Battle of Palo Alto, not far from the US and Mexican border, inside of Texas. This war was caused by General Mariano Arista in his attempt to form a siege fort around Texas, knowing that General Zachary Taylor would come. And he had planned this out so that it would be a trap for Zachary Taylor, but Zachary Taylor came prepared with many troops, more than Arista anticipated. The result of the Battle of Palo Alto was the retreat of Mexico, therefore declaring America victorious. A day later, Arista planned his second battle, and this time he planned to win. This was not the case once again. He had laid the new ambush in an area where there was lots of vegetation and dense air. He hoped that this would make sure the Americans could not fight with their weapons, but this was no match for the Americans' determination, and Mexicans were forced to retreat to Monterrey. This was known as the Battle of Bresca de la Palma. In the 4 months before the next major battle, Polk spent time sending troops to go conquer more land towards California. But once those 4 months passed, a new battle called the Battle of Monterrey occurred. When the Battle of Monterrey occurred, it was caused by General Pedro de Ampudia and his attempt to keep General Taylor away from Monterrey on his slow search throughout the northern side of Mexico. It wasn't long before General Taylor was able to find out the Mexicans' weaknesses and turn that against them. He managed to find out that the Mexicans were too separated apart from where they were trying to defend, so he used this as an opportunity to attack each side of the fortification. This led to the surrender of the troops in Monterrey, and this is where General Taylor camped out. Not too long afterwards, the Battle of Buena Vista was one of the greatest battles that determined the future of America. The Battle of Buena Vista happened when General Taylor pushed towards the south and more, and then later on he met up with people who were waiting for him at the Gulf of Mexico. Mexican General Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna decided that he would ambush the troops from America while they were weak and tired. This battle would have been successful for the Mexicans if General Taylor hadn't sent propaganda about a new rebellion taking place farther south. This word about the rebellion sent Santa Anna back south. This war was the closest time that Americans could have lost, and this was all due to the propaganda that saved him. After 6 more battles that had occurred in between Mexico and America, it had finally come to the conclusion of the last battle, which was called Battle of Chapultepec. The battle was taking place in Chapultepec Hill. This battle took days and was very grueling and painful for the people who fought alongside Santa Anna. In the end of it, Santa Anna had retreated and taken the men he had left behind with him. When this happened, Mexico knew to surrender the land over to the bandits who had fought them for many years over land between Texas and California. Mexico finally surrendered and was ready to negotiate about the Treaty of Guadalupe. Mexico ended up being paid less than they were offered before, but there was no more war, and that was how the Mexican-American War had ended. One of the greatest land expansions in American history.